today to introduce Stephani Gordon. She comes to us from Portland, Oregon. I'm not going to give you too much of her background because I think she's going to tell you a little bit about how she got where she is today during her talk, but just briefly, she has a bachelor's in biology from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and a master's from Humboldt State in California, where she worked on pinniped foraging and founded her own company, Open Boat Films, in 2006. And she left. She worked as a field biologist, then left and attended a school in Montana specifically for filmmaking in science and natural history. So she'll tell you more about that. I did want to tell you briefly, if you haven't had the opportunity to work with a professional science outreach and documentarian, it is a pleasure because you can focus on your work and know that the work is actually getting documented better than at least I have ever done myself by a long shot. So I encourage you all to meet with her. We've got time in the schedule tomorrow if anybody would like to. And without further ado, Stephani Gordon will be talking about science communication in the current landscape.
Cool. Can you dim the front outlets? Oh, there we go. Hi, I'm Stephani Gordon. Thanks for the introduction, Dr. Seibel. I'm going to start with just some pictures, some images, to give you an idea of what science communication can look like. And they're from an expedition we did, a 4-week expedition on an NSF ship off the coast of Mexico with Dr. Seibel and his team. So I know some of you in this audience because I was on a ship with you for over a month. But anyway, yeah, so we'll start out with that and then we'll get into more of the nitty-gritty. Oops, I forgot this clicker. So that's a little Argonaut, and it's next to a dime, so it's tiny. But this is an amazing, fascinating creature. And I spent hours and hours photographing it, and my favorite thing about this part of the expedition was that the photography, the image making, and the science completely just collided. And so we were doing everything together, and they were coming up with all sorts of really cool questions, and the camera was helping record that. So anyway, we'll just go through a couple more. Some of the cool stuff that we saw. I also document the science ops and what people are doing. And actually, I put all these images together a week ago, and along with a written pitch, and we are pitching it to National Geographic for a short news video. So we'll see if they pick it up about the oxygen minimum zone. I love the cephalopods. Oh yeah, and here's some screenshots from the interview.
He's like, nobody looks good when they're talking.
So anyway, yeah, and we launched out of Manzanillo, Mexico. So I want to start with a question. This is from Wikipedia, by the way. We have a little thing going on, but who's done science communication? Who's had that be part of what they've had to do? And who would like it to be a bigger part of what they do, and maybe do it better? Very cool. And who thinks it's important? Okay, good. So, yeah, I thought we'd start out with just what is science communication? I like how it says not to be confused with scientific publishing or science publishing. That said, so I'm going to go to the next slide. I kind of summarized some of the major points on that Wikipedia definition. A lot of times it means communication with the public or with people that aren't experts in your field. It can also describe communication between scientists. Because we all know that science is this thing and then communicating it is a whole different matter. So even scientists talking to each other probably need to spend a lot of energy figuring out how to convey what they found out. Your goals can be to generate support for science and your research in general. It can be to influence decision makers. And there's kind of this trend on sharing the methods and not just your results, not just being like, okay, look, this is what we found. And anybody have an idea why that might be important? Why does it matter if we talk about how you found out what you found out? Does that make a difference? Oh yeah, go
We
ahead.
just need to be able to communicate to people who don't have a background, possibly don't have a background in it, and tie it to what they're doing, why it's important to their lives, so that they care.
Yeah, so that's super important. And then when I was a scientist, I don't know about you, but if I would decide if I'm going to believe something, where's the first section you go to? Is it the discussion where the person is telling you, look, this is my big theory? Or is it the introduction where they say, this is what we already know? No, it's the methods. You say, do I believe in the way that they arrived at this result? Like, were they solid? And I think you have to be really careful not to be arrogant and think, oh, the public doesn't need to know that. I, of course, have sound methods. It's like, no, explain the process to them a little bit. And I think video is awesome for that because you're telling a story and you can show, even if you're not even talking about it a lot, you can show it. People can get an idea of, oh, that's how they started to study that and learn stuff about it. Anyway, so there's things that pretend to be science, but they won't have good methods. So that's another key point. So we've got this great thing. People actually usually want to learn about science and learn about their world. And if we don't provide them information, they get information from other sources. So I think it's kind of important. I understand, though, that everybody has a limited amount of time and money, and it takes work. So there is that, too. It's not like it just happens on its own. But anyway, we have an opportunity to share the research that you guys do. I mean, like each of you has an opportunity to share it widely, or just to share it with 15 other people that study the same thing. And this is my "the time is now" slide. So I think it hasn't felt that urgent to people, to scientists, to people in the science community, necessarily, for the past however many decades. But right now, it's urgent. You got to do it. There are people out there that don't believe in science anymore. They would love a reason not to believe in science. And if we don't take this opportunity to communicate with them, and we've got better tools and easier ways to access them, you don't have to produce a half-hour PBS show to get people to look at your research. We've got the web, everybody's got a smartphone, or a lot of people do. Like, there's ways to get content out there. All right, so it's important. How do we do it? That's what I'm going to try to spend the rest of my talk giving you guys a little bit of an introduction about. I spent probably 4 years on my MFA studying science communication, so it's not like I can cover that much in an hour, but I picked a couple things. I'll start out with just talking about who I am and where I came from and kind of how I got here. Then we'll talk about some trends in science communication. And my main idea there is just kind of open up your mind to what that can mean. Because we're taught as scientists, it's pretty rigid structure for communicating, and you have to follow that when you're doing your scientific articles, and there's good reasons for it, but it doesn't work when you're trying to communicate to the lay public. You can't be super dry and clinical and detached. And then the third part is I'll just talk about what a film project looks like if you kind of break it down. Because I think a lot of people don't know. To me, it just feels like, oh, of course everybody knows, but I think that could be interesting to people to find out what my process is. Again, I don't speak for everybody, of course, and there's different ways of doing things, but I've done it enough. I've done it for the past 10 to 12 years that it all kind of makes sense to me, and I can explain that at least. And then afterwards, if we have time, you guys can come up and look at my super minimalized kit. I usually bring a lot more stuff than this, but this is what I travel with when I'm not even really filming, but still want to get some imagery. So it's kind of fun to look at gear if you guys want to. All right, so for me, since I started out as a scientist, being a science filmmaker feels like a similar process, only with a different end deliverable. So there I am, being a scientist, being a field biologist. I spent 12 years doing that out of college, studied seabirds and fisheries interactions and oil spills and seabird population ecology. Studied harbor seals and salmonid interactions in Northern California for my master's, and then I went to Hawaii, studied monk seals, turtles, sharks, jacks, coral reef stuff, installed oceanographic instruments. Basically got a lot of experience in the water and working in coastal ecosystems in remote places. And kind of got exposed to a lot of different habitats and just learned everything I could about the ocean. And I don't know about you guys, but that's what kind of drove me, just wanting to learn more and more about this fascinating thing. And I collected data, analyzed it, wrote peer-reviewed papers, and that was my process. And then I met Susan Middleton and David Lichwager, and they kind of, for better or for worse, changed my course and my direction. So they are two photographers. They were working on a National Geographic project. And who knows where the northwestern Hawaiian Islands are? Do you guys know what that is? So Hawaii's got the main 8 islands where people live, and it keeps going for another 1,200 miles. But people don't live out there. They're just these almost submerged atolls and reefs. So I was doing a lot of work up there studying the coral reef predators, and writing papers about it, and they were doing a photography project. So taking like really, really good, very precise photos that try to really capture all the anatomy, but also just even kind of the essence of a creature. And I was super impressed with their work. They actually asked to have me be their field guide because I knew the marine environment up there really well. So I got to work closely with them. I love it. They were like, we don't want to just do the big beautiful creatures. We want to do the algae, and we want to do the algae in such a beautiful way that people love algae. Isn't this gorgeous? This is a coral reef algae. So they did studio shots and stuff to kind of separate it from the environment. But and then this was my first major science communication job, really. They hired me to be a freelance writer to write their marine species profiles and their captions. And then that exhibit went all over. It was hanging in the White House. It went to all these different museums and art installations. And you try making a gelatinous red algae that only 3 people even have ever heard of. Or maybe it even just got named after your boss. That's the Bernardi. Interesting and fun and engaging. It was such a good challenge. And I had to go interview people. Usually I'd have to go interview the phycologist who discovered it and say, what can you tell me about this? I mean, it wasn't in books. It wasn't anywhere. It was just people that knew it. And they would tell me what the adaptations were and why this organism was the way it was. But yeah, I had to make it fun. Because do you think people would have read this or enjoyed it if I just gave the clinical description that was in the monograph describing it? No. But the cool thing is you can do both. I mean, like you can be accurate and you can make it fun for your public audience. You don't have to throw all your science out the window. So about a year after I finished that, I kind of jumped ship. I had a perfectly nice career and full-time job in Hawaii, studying remote coral reefs, and I loved my work. But I said, no, you know what? I really have this bug, and I want to help scientists communicate their research. Because the other thing I was frustrated about was I was collecting data on sharks and jacks. In some of the areas we worked, there were so many sharks and jacks. I mean, it's a completely different trophic system than people normally expect. They expect just a few top predators and then a wide base. In the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, it's almost backwards. There's so many top predators. So they would write papers about it, but I thought, it's different when you can kind of be there and see it, and most people can't be there. They can't go. But I thought, well, maybe there's a way to share that in a way that helps people experience it a little bit more. Because I felt that was part of why all of the scientists who worked out there loved it so much and cared about it and wanted to protect it. So I went off to film school in Montana. They have a science and natural history filmmaking program where they take people with science backgrounds and teach them filmmaking. And it's cold. That's Yellowstone, and I'm wearing pretty much all the clothes I have. But, and then so it was kind of crazy. It was almost like a Field of Dreams thing where if you build it, they will come. I took this big leap, which felt really unnerving, to be honest. And I, at first didn't know anything. I mean, I used a camera a bunch. I kind of did some photojournalism in college, but I didn't know how to make a film. I didn't know how to operate a professional video camera and adjust all my settings and write an interview and collect audio. So I basically almost slept with my camera for the first year and a half or so. Like, it was just always 6 inches away from me. I filmed everything anybody would give me a job to do, and I edited my own footage. So I did, oh God, why didn't I hold that shot a couple more seconds? So that's a good way to learn. But and then films came. It's kind of crazy. Like the National Park Service wanted 3 films on climate change in national parks, and so I got picked to do that. And then we did it. It's like no way to learn something except to just go do it. So But then for my thesis film, I did what you're supposed to kind of do what you really, really want to without a lot of other people telling you how. And I really wanted to film a researcher doing their thing and communicate that science. And I think I have a clip next. Let's see if it works. So I'll show you just the first 3 minutes of my thesis film. Is that too loud? No.
You think of Alaska, follow down the northern area, there's a tip that comes out and almost touches Russia, and that's basically what we consider the Bering Land Bridge. So we're at the northern part of that peninsula. We're just south today of the Arctic Circle, about 61 degrees of latitude.
Came to Kotzebue where we're doing large banding drives, and my job is to gather the swans up onto the lake. So essentially I get to be an aerial herder, I guess, if you will.
We're capitalizing on a period in these birds' life cycle. They drop all their flight feathers and come to these big lakes and places that have good foraging. Molting is basically when you change out your feathers. And most birds lose feathers kind of one at a time or not all at once the way these larger waterfowl do. The big picture of what we're doing is sampling for avian influenza in Alaska. The idea was if any place was going to be a likely migration route for avian influenza coming into the United States, it's going to be Alaska, because we have so many birds that basically go to Asia for part of the year, generally the winter, and then come here to breed. So that was the basic tenet of looking in Alaska. Tundra swans were picked as a priority species. They've been one of the most common wild birds in Europe and throughout Asia to show up with avian influenza. Doing field projects in Alaska is logistically difficult and expensive. So we're trying to get as much other data as we can while we're capturing these birds as possible. The swabs that we take for avian influenza are a very small part in terms of everything else that we could get in a single sample. In this study, we're also taking blood samples to look at health parameters and learn about the general health of the birds, exposure to contaminants, etc., historical exposure to viruses. Looking at migration patterns, there's 3 or 4 different ways we're looking at that. 1, 2, 4, 5.
Okay, so yeah, you just get a little bit of idea, and then we go into more of the science as the film goes on. But and it won the Science Award at the Imagine Science Film Festival in New York City, so super exciting. But that was my thesis film, and that is what my passion is to help scientists tell their story. In fact, Fish and Wildlife, so I made this film quite a few years ago, and they just emailed Heather and figured out where the film had come from, and then contacted me, and the woman, she was like, we are trying to connect more with our public, and we really want more films like this where they can kind of feel what it's like. So that was a huge compliment, just that she felt like this gave people a little bit of an experience of what their pilot biologists do. Because these guys are kind of crazy. They're pretty wild and woolly. Okay, who dives or who snorkels or free dives or likes to be in the ocean? Do you guys try to use a camera underwater, or do you like it? It's complicated, isn't it? Because you're already doing a lot of other stuff. Well, so I've been a diver as part of my marine biology, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to film underwater, but we're in Montana. So kind of had to defer that for a little bit, but I just was intent on it, and bought a housing and just started doing it and messed up a lot, and then was able to. So that was one of the projects where I got to film these autonomous underwater vehicles. We were actually looking for Amelia Earhart's plane. We didn't find it. We got to just kind of be out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, which was kind of fun. Have another short clip. I think this one's also about 3 minutes. This is just my underwater reel from a couple of years ago. Oh, actually, it's got other stuff too. Okay, and here's my client list 10 years later. So it's I think it was a good leap to make. I kind of missed the steadiness of my science income, but I've had a lot of good adventures and I love what I do. So I loved science too, though. I think if you have a way to do both, that's a good thing too. Okay, so moving right along. Let's just talk. I'm going to talk now for a little bit about science communication and the trends that we're seeing. And maybe give you guys some ideas, different things you can do. This is from an article by Megan Williams on dextrends.org, and it's a really cool website. It's full of lots of different ideas about science, arts, technology. But these are the seven trends that she talked about for science communication a year ago. So storytelling is becoming a much bigger part of it. People are realizing that you can give people data, but they believe it a lot more if you tell them the story around it. I don't know why, it's just how we are, how we're wired. Vibing on stage is really popular. Who's watched a TED Talk? Whose mom has watched a TED Talk? I mean, I think some of these are making things a lot more popular. Data rich. Journals are accessing a lot bigger data sets, and I mean, not always, but there is at least a bit of a trend towards that way. Making it fun, doing it fast, making it social, making it less formal. I mean, there's something that feels really kind of immediate and exciting about it when it's just a tweet from a rover on Mars, for example, instead of some big report. And open and online. That's kind of a hot topic in some science circles, to make the data more transparent and to make it available to people. They actually publish entire data sets online. So here's the data. So I'm going to talk about a couple of projects that I worked on a little bit. This wasn't my project, but I got to help film during his Morea cubic foot of reef. So this is the same photographer that inspired me to begin with. And he had this concept that we've got all this biodiversity. He goes, well, what if we just looked at the biodiversity in an area that you could hold in your lap? And so he made this green cube-shaped thing. And he took it to, I think, 7 different ecosystems to begin with, and then he's added some more. But he would find a place and put this cube down, and then he would work with scientists, like top-notch geneticists and other people that were studying that ecosystem, and they would monitor it for 24 hours, and they would identify everything that went through that cube, or that was already there. And then they would capture those animals, and he would take pictures of them, and of course release them to the wild, I'm sure. Not always, but I don't know, he's done some really exciting stuff with this project. You end up with these beautiful, gorgeous images that people can relate to, but then they match it up with the data-rich science where they have the genetic codes. In Morea, we were trying to do the entire island ecosystem, identify and do a genetic thing for every single organism bigger than that you could see without a microscope. Huge task. It's called census of, I should say that for just the reef. I don't know if they did the terrestrial part. So we did the reef, the census of marine life. So we wanted to do that. It was the Smithsonian was working on it, and so his exhibit though is now hanging in his hall in the Smithsonian. So you know how many visitors that gets. But the part that I'm more excited about is this is another trend that's not on here, but citizen science. Sometimes people call ecotourism citizen science, and that kind of bugs me, but it's not really. But he really is doing citizen science with this. And in places like Africa, in different countries where he's done this cubic foot of biodiversity stuff, he will has instructions for how to build a cube. He goes out there and does workshops, and he works with people in villages and stuff and shows them how to do it. And then has people collect data in different habitats. So I think that's really exciting for them, and it's kind of exciting for us to get the public actually involved and engaged with doing science. This is a project I worked on. So I'd just done kind of a formal adult-style documentary about 3 of the new marine national monuments in the Pacific. And then the next year, another grant came up after I finished that. How am I going to pitch them again? I want to do another project, but I can't just say, I'll do another documentary on the same thing. So I partnered with this CISPRO Studios who specializes in really crazy kids programming. And we made a film about the 4 marine national monuments. That was the only difference. There was a 4th one added for kids. And it's really fun and visual, and there's storytelling in it. So see, I'll play a little clip from it.
I have the report you asked for on the marine national monuments of the Pacific Ocean. The rest of my team should be here shortly.
Very good, Lewis. What did you find?
Yes, okay, well, the United States established 4 marine national monuments in the Pacific Ocean. Here, 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 and here. These monuments are remote, special, and now protected places.
I don't understand. You call them monuments. Are they statues or fancy buildings?
No, ma'am, they are islands. They are reefs. Volcanic trenches running deep, each one important, each one unique. So full of life, please take a peek. It's all right here in my report.
The report is just a bunch of music.
Where millions of birds do stay and nest here with sea turtles too. More than 7,000 species underwater, it's true in Hawaii. Northwest Hawaii, sacred places galore. Historical shipwrecks and plains and more, where culture and nature mix. With Hawaiian monk seals and albatross chicks, some of the most incredible reefs in the world. Marine national monuments of Nauvoo, special places that I never knew were filled with extraordinary things. Marine national monuments were set aside, protected places of Pacific pride, makes my heart sing.
Okay, so you get the idea. And then he has verses for all the other atolls, and at the very end she goes, I have to go check with the big boss, and you follow her in, she's telling the big boss all the stuff you can't really see who the big boss is, and then we reveal, and it's a baby. Going, Gah! If you were a kid, or maybe even an adult, how would you rather learn about the marine national monuments? Like with a voiceover telling you these 3 monuments were created, or with this. So this is
this guy?
This is Rob Sams. So Rob and Laura are the sister-brother team and Cisbro. So, and they're great. They work for Jim Henson Company and other big names, but they also love marine conservation. So they did this and the other in a later film with me. Here's some other things. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's called Dance Your PhD. So it's kind of live and on stage. Who here is working on their PhD? Could you dance it? And whether or not you could, do you think it would be a really good exercise for your brain to figure out how to do that? Yeah. I would like to see the one that was, somebody was studying sperm competition, and they just, people have to like at the water polo team or something is what I heard. Perhaps a little more practical, but there's also 3-minute thesis competitions where people have to give their thesis in 3 minutes. They have to, and I think that's a really good exercise. It's kind of like the elevator pitch. Somebody says, hey, what are you studying? Instead of going, well, you know. Do you have 45 minutes? Yeah. You can tell them in 3 minutes and make it interesting for them. This is something that happens in New York City every year. It's been happening for a little while, but Rethink Science is this, well, it's the World Science Festival, but it's trying to help scientists and other people think kind of outside the box, and like how do we, science can't just keep, I don't know, I feel like it's gotten kind of weighed down, and we do need to kind of think of how we're doing it and where we need to go from here. So I love that there's places like this that do that. They do a lot of performance art and live and on stage stuff. This is the Curiosity rover. It has its own Twitter account. And isn't that a lot more fun than a NASA report? So I love it's how it's like this. It's got this avatar and it says things as if it's its own self. And this has this little video where they explain how it's going to land based on football. So here's another project I worked on. So I filmed for a marine archaeologist in Papahanaumokuakea. By the way, that was a really big challenge for them. I said, you're gonna have to write a song, or we agreed to write a song, but so you have to include the word Papahanaumokuakea. And he even, first time he sang it, recorded it. I mean, he practiced it a whole bunch, but he didn't say it right. And so we had to like redo it, that part. But anyway, so I was up there filming for a marine archaeologist, Kelly Gleason, who's right there. But I was filming with her on a previous film idea she had, and the last day, they jumped in the water. They'd already discovered one 18th century whale, and we just had one extra day, and so they rolled in the water, and they'd been towing around looking for stuff, just not in no particular area. And 5 minutes later, the two people poke their heads up and they go, guys, we just found a really old anchor. And so we're like, wow, you guys are kidding. But we jump in and we found the anchor, we found tripods, and it was this 18th century whaler shipwreck. And then it took them 2 years of research, but it turns out, and I was filming with them, so that was exciting. I filmed the discovery. But it turned out to be a ship with a really famous connection. So it was George Pollard, captained the Essex. The Essex got stove by a whale, sank, people ate each other. That inspired Moby Dick. That story. George Pollard. He got one other ship. It was the two brothers. And it wrecked there. And they'd never found it. So we found it. We found the two brothers' whale ship. So Kelly said, hey, let's make it. She goes, do you think it'd be worth making a film about this? I'm like, hell yeah. So I went up and filmed them doing all their research on it and measuring everything, and because you pretty much leave it up there. It's not like you recover everything. It's somewhere remote. People aren't going to take it, and so they have to apply for permits to remove a few artifacts. But generally, they just leave the shipwrecks in place. And I've done quite a few archaeology films because I feel like they grasp, maybe it's because their stuff happened in the past, they grasp, as well as any scientist I've ever worked with, the fact that if you don't share it, it doesn't make much of an impact. So if they discovered this and then didn't really tell anybody about it, okay. But she very much understands the importance of, like, it's kind of their product, their result, is to share this discovery with the world. So we made this film. It did really well. It won some awards. And then In the Heart of the Sea got made. And Ron Howard decided, somebody gave him a copy of the film. Actually, Nathaniel Philbrook, who wrote the book In the Heart of the Sea, gave him a copy of this film because we'd interviewed him for it and he knew about it. And they decided to put it on the DVD. So that was huge for us. We got Warner Brothers distribution, basically. But so we had an event where we got to see a special early showing of In the Heart of the Sea, and we paired it with the documentary, and there was so much buzz. It was so exciting for everybody to be there, and it just made marine archaeology really, really exciting and sexy. So sometimes it's worth the extra effort. This is my honest opinion. I think pretty much all science, if it's not worth sharing with people at all, probably is maybe not worth doing. I don't know. I think all science stories have a really interesting, good angle. And you just got to find out who your audience is and engage them. Okay, so I think that we have a good amount of time for kind of breaking down a film project. What does it look like? How do you do it? So the process starts with an idea. So you think, hey, this could be what I want to make a film about. Then you've got pre-production, field production, post-production. That's while you're actually making film. Distributing it, you're getting it out to your audience. And then bonus points, if you can measure your impact. So there's kind of this trend towards, a lot of grants nowadays will ask you to measure your impact, to see if you can detect a change in behavior or attitudes among your audience. So it's hard to do, though, to be honest, because sometimes I think attitudes and behaviors change over years, and usually your funding doesn't last that long. So it'd be great if you could like show people a film and then 2 years later see if they voted differently or something. But it is something to keep in mind. If you have a way to measure impact, that can make your proposal stronger. So when I was filming for a turtle film, shark researcher is a friend of mine, was driving me out to this reef, and while we were out there looking for turtles, by the way, she gets me out there, she goes, oh, there'll definitely be turtles out here. lots of turtles. We're out in the middle of this bay. And then we get there, and I go, aren't you getting in? Oh, no way. I was like, why not? Oh, this is where I've caught all of my biggest tiger sharks. But you'll find turtles, so jump in. Okay. But on the way back from filming the turtles, which was fun, it was really murky water too. I did get out after a while. But I turned to her and I was like, hey, we should make a film about your research. She studies shark bycatch issues in the Pacific. And so sharks get caught by fisheries, and since they pup and don't produce tens of thousands of young, like the targeted species, they don't survive it very well. Their populations are really impacted by that. I said, you're doing really great research. We should do a film with you. And so she's like, yeah, I really like that. And when we got funding, that's what she emailed. Let's make a movie. So you've got your idea, and then you've got to develop it. So first you say, well, did somebody else already make this movie? Is there a need for this movie? In her case, she's like, okay, well, what do I want to make a movie about? So in the end, what we decided was about her research. She's tagging and tracking vertically migrating sharks and to see if they match up with scattering layers. She's doing that in concert with a large ship that does detailed acoustics. So that's pretty cool stuff. But she also realized she wants to make a film for the fishers, the actual people in the fishing industry that are catching sharks and releasing them, which sometimes includes like smacking them with a baseball bat, kicking them across the deck, and isn't good for their survivability. And she also wants to make a film for observers. So we've got 3 products. I really like the way this has happened so far, which is, she said, we came up with the idea, then in the spring when she wrote her grant, she called me up, she says, okay, how much money should I ask for? Can you give me a couple paragraphs? So if you can write the outreach money into your grant and get it all together, that's great. Then you're not scrambling afterwards and you're like, oh, this would be cool to document, but where do I get separate money for it? So if you can plan it ahead of time, that helps. And then she had to reach out to project partners. I usually do it kind of more midstream, but sometimes you need more people on your team to pull it off than yourself. So maybe you need to find a filmmaker, maybe you don't. Maybe you need to just link up with other researchers or somebody who can help you edit the stuff if you're the one who's going to take the imagery. But in the development phase, you kind of think that all through. And be realistic, because you can't, maybe you can like envision this great big thing, but it's going to be too hard to do. It's not a good thing to promise. So in the film industry, there's kind of a saying like, under promise and over deliver. So that's a good concept. Because it's harder to pull off than you might think sometimes. This is a shot from when I was filming with her in September. This is the bigger boat that they fish off of. The smaller boat, I kept offering to go out with her, and she's like, I don't think you can. These like tough Hawaiian fishermen that just have this small boat, barely a cabin, and the whole deck is covered in blood and seawater all the time. She's like, you're gonna have a hard time filming. It's like, and all night. You just go out all night. But okay, yeah, we'll film it from this nicer sport fishing boat. Okay, pre-production is when you do the planning, you do a lot of writing. If anybody thinks they want to do filmmaking because they don't have to write, forget about it. You're a really good writer. Logistics, that's one of the things I felt like field biology and science taught me really well, and it's something I bring to the table for my film projects. Logistics is a huge thing. And especially I work in a lot of remote areas or islands that are, I don't know, they don't have everything that you might expect. And I learned this third point early on with one of the marine archaeology films. So we did this whole great film about shipwrecks in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. Beautiful films, getting through all the cuts and approvals and stuff, and then my lead contact goes, oh, I should actually probably take that to the director of our group, like the lab director, or not, it wasn't really a lab, it wasn't a monument either, what was it back then, the reserve. Well, that person said, well, how come there's not a big chapter on Hawaiians? It's like on Hawaiian archaeology. I was like, well, because we didn't film that, and it's not out there, and like all this other stuff. So the whole film almost got axed because somebody way up there, like way up the chain that had to sign off on it was like, oh, you're missing this whole big section. So if there's people that have that power, people that you're gonna have to please later, get them on board early. Make them part of the process. Say, hey, we've got this idea, we're getting funding for it, or we got funding for it. This is our outline, this is what we're gonna cover. How do you feel about that? It's way better to get it in the beginning. than later, when you can't go refilm. So plan, plan, plan. Not that you get to stick to your plan, but it's a good place to start. Okay, field production, probably my favorite part. It's because it's when you get to go out there and film. You're getting audio, you're getting stills, you're getting footage. Usually you have a script or an outline that gives you the list of stuff that you want, that you need to complete to tell your story. The thing to do though is to have a plan. You don't go out there without a plan. You don't just say, oh, I'm just gonna go film and the story will occur to me. And I'll have stuff, and I mean, like, some people go make documentaries that way. They just go film somebody who's interesting for 10 years. And then they edit for 20 years. It's not a good way to do it. So you write an outline, or you write a script, or you write a treatment is what they call it, where it's like a one-page thing that describes in your vision like what that's going to look like. And then you write yourself a shot list and say, these are the shots I need for that to happen. These are the interviews I need. This is the content I need. And then it might not happen when you're out there. And that's okay. You can't get really upset about it. You have to just say, okay, what's happening? What's more exciting? What do I have? But just having those pieces in your head makes you know if you have enough to make a story. And you can replace parts and stuff. So you've got to be flexible, but you also have to be prepared. So that's what you kind of execute. Plan. Oh, I think there's a short clip right now from a 3-minute clip from my How Good Food, which is
Today is my birthday, and this is my birthday cake. Why is my birthday cake floating on the ocean? I will tell you how it happened. My name is Kaya, and I'm from Saipan. Exactly 2 nights ago, I had a strange dream.
Okay, so that's just the first part of that film. That was another Cisco Studios Open Book Films collaboration. And I just wanted to use it as an example of production. So we also have another thing, which is everything that can go wrong will when you're trying to film. We were supposed to film in Saipan in August, and they had Typhoon Solidor, and